Welcome to The Future and You. This episode is for May 18, 2011. I am your host, Stephen Euin Cobb. Our guest today is Michael A. Stackpole, New York Times best-selling author. Topics include: print publishing is now in a severe crisis. Previously, they had a monopoly on the delivery of story, but that is gone. He also describes how some literary agents have taken on a conflict of interest in their attempt to help their clients benefit from electronic rights. He warns writers about ridiculously bad deals, how the big book publishers will no longer publish a book if they can't get the far more lucrative electronic rights, and when it is to an author's advantage to skip having physical books made at all and just go with the more profitable ebooks. He also comments on Kindle, EPUB, typos, book cover tips, Zapptek Legend Maker, and how much literary agents get from ebooks. Michael A. Stackpole is a science fiction and fantasy author best known for his Star Wars and Battletech books. Beginning in 1977, he worked as a designer of role-playing games for various gaming companies. In the 1980s, he began designing computer games for Coleco and Interplay Productions, such as Bard's Tale 3, Wasteland, Star Trek 25th Anniversary, and Star Trek Judgment Rites. He also created the role-playing game Mercenaries and Spies and Private Eyes, which provided the game mechanics for Wasteland. In 1987, he began writing novels set in the Battletech universe and became one of the most popular authors in that genre. He was then selected to write a number of novels in the Star Wars universe. He is also a popular podcaster, essayist, speaker, and has an asteroid, discovered in 2001, named after him. And now, on to our interview. Here is Michael A. Stackpole. Let me ask you about The Secrets, which is both a newsletter and a podcast. How did that get started? What did it entail? How long have you been doing it? What was the beginnings of it, so to speak?
Well, I've been teaching how to write classes for probably about 20 years at Gen Con, and then on at other conventions, as we had just discussed. And I decided that doing a newsletter, doing a how to write publication that people could subscribe to, would be a way to allow people to kind of follow up on the classes, and for me to use a lot of this material. The podcast, which I've let fade because I've been co-hosting the Dragon Page Cover to Cover podcast, where I covered a lot of the same material, was basically begun as a way to continue those classes and to advertise the newsletter. The newsletter itself, we're going into the 8th year of the newsletter. I think the next issue to come out will be about number 148. And the actual inspiration for the newsletter was back in the 1930s, a magician named Ted Anneman did a magician's newsletter called The Jinx, and that in every issue of that there would be new tricks and new discussions and new things, and really helped revolutionize magic as it was being done, especially in the small form. And so I was kind of hoping that The Secrets would allow me to do that. I really didn't realize at the time when I started it that we were in such a transition point for publishing, that this would really be a place where not only could I help people learn how to write, but also help people through this whole transition period as digital publishing comes on.
You mentioned the changes going on in publishing. What changes have you noticed? I mean, there's a lot of them to see. Which ones stand out most to you?
Well, basically that print publishing is in a crisis. I mean, it's been in a crisis since the 80s and probably before that, but it's in a rather severe crisis now. And what's happening is that publishers used to have a monopoly over the delivery of story. They no longer have a monopoly on the delivery of story. It is as easy or easier for me as an individual author to make my work available digitally and get it directly to my readers, and make them pay less for it, and yet I get a much larger chunk out of that exchange, than it is for me to go with traditional publishers bringing things out in paper. And this all of a sudden empowers authors because it frees us from the shackles of distribution. Because distribution did two things. One, through no fault of our own, we would be limited in how far our books could penetrate. Face it, your books can only make it into bookstores. You know, if they print 10,000 copies, what's the maximum number of copies you can sell?
10,000.
Exactly. So if those 10,000 don't allow them to have a book in every place where books are sold, chances are some of your audience is never going to know that your book was out there. But now with digital stuff, because readers who are your fans get to come to your web page, get to see what you're blogging about, get to see when you have a new release, get to hit that link that sends them over to Amazon so that they can buy that book and deliver it immediately to their Kindle. All of a sudden, they don't have to find a bookstore, and with bookstores closing, that's tricky. They don't have to hope that your book is actually still on the shelves, and with shrinking shelf space, that's tricky. They know they can get it whenever they want it, wherever they are. And that is a substantial change in how readers and writers are going to be able to interrelate.
I've heard that a lot of the major publishing houses have been scrambling trying to get e-rights. You already know the amount that the author gets from a Kindle.
Right.
Some of the listeners, most of my listeners know already that it's about 70%.
Right.
Because we've talked about the topic before on the show. In fact, I was talking to an author just a few months ago that was actively gathering up all his electronic rights for I think he had 8 or 9 novels, and was putting them up on the Kindle himself. The only downside I can think of to being only in electronic print, or maybe I should say the only upside I can think of for being in a physical bookstore, is that people can stumble across your book without knowing you even exist, which seems to be a little more difficult in electronic. Although I must say I'm actually actively gathering my books to put on the Kindle as well. It's just too tempting. It's just too good a deal.
Oh yeah. I think that this idea that browsers discover authors is one that has gone unquestioned, because as per the beginning of our conversation, it's one that feels right. I don't think that there is any empirical data that proves that that's right. Whereas when you go to the Amazon page and you search on murder mysteries, they're going to bring up a whole list of books that fulfill that criteria. So right there is a list which is pre-selected to the desires of the reader that will include you on it. So that's better than somebody having to stumble upon you somehow in a crowded bookshelf. You're already being selected out. And even if they don't choose you, okay, let's say they choose another title because they like it, and they're reading that, right down to the bottom of that screen, there's going to be 5 or 6 cover shots under the little rubric of people who bought this also bought, which is another selection and promotion process for you. So really, you know, I would rather, me personally, I would rather rely on someone making an informed choice and taking a flyer than someone just drifting through a bookstore and hoping that they may accidentally run across a copy of one of my books.
Yeah. Also today, a lot of people, they discover a book by their friend read it, and it's mentioned on the social websites.
Exactly.
So that the word is able to spread much more easily. I think the only evidence people have, and the evidence that I've worked from myself, as far as discovering authors accidentally, is from when I was a teenager and didn't know any science fiction fans other than myself, and I would discover John Varley's books, the Gaia series, when I was a teenager,
Right.
Accidentally. I discovered Ray Bradbury accidentally, Isaac Asimov accidentally, just stumbling across them in stores. Of course, at the time, these were established authors. Many of them were legendary already. but I stumbled across them accidentally, so I assume that that's how you find authors. But things have changed.
Well, things have changed, and back when you and I were teens, and well, even back when I was a teen, which is you were still a child, the the fact is those bookshelves were a heck of a lot more stocked. So you could very easily find those sorts of things, and there were anthologies and there were magazines where if you bought a magazine and you bought an anthology because you liked Ray Bradbury, and you suddenly found that Arthur Clarke or Roger Zelazny or Fred Saberhagen had stories in that anthology, you could discover them that way. But now, anthologies, they're there, but they're not ordered in depth. Magazines are virtually non-existent. It's very difficult. The avenues for that stumbling upon are not as readily available as they were. And I think, as you point out, the social networks are a lot better for this kind of thing.
Yeah. Another statistic is, and you may already know it, I've mentioned it on the show before, is that last summer, which is now about, I don't know, almost 10 months ago, Amazon announced that ebook sales of specific titles at their website started to outsell the paperback, the physical books. And then, no, excuse me, that was the hardbacks last summer.
Right.
And in January of this year, paperbacks did the same thing. Ebook versions
Right.
of the paperbacks outsold the physical books. Are all of your books available as ebooks today?
No, not all of them are available as ebooks. The ones that I control the rights for are will be coming into availability as ebooks. It's just a question of me getting the time to be able to prep the files and put them up. The other ones that unfortunately is at the whim of the publishers, and but this is why when they have asked me if I'm willing to sell them the rights to some of the books that they did not own, that I declined, just because I knew I could do it better, faster, and I would make more.
hmm Are you now in a mode where you would, if you wrote another book right now, finished it, say yesterday, would you even sell it to a major publisher, or would you only put it up as an ebook?
I happen to be in an interesting position because of my speed,
hmm
where I can straddle both worlds.
Mm.
I can do some books that will be digital originals,
hmm
and I won't look for a publishing deal. However, I am more than willing to do proposals, turn them over to my agent, let my agent go ahead and try and sell them here in the United States. And depending upon what the offer is that a publisher makes, I may, agree to go with it or to decline.
hmm
It will depend, just on how valuable they think I am.
hmm
And it's and I mean, I hate to reduce it to this, but it really does boil down to two numbers, two nuts and bolts. You know, are they going to give me enough money for me to be secure financially for the life of the project that they want me to do? And if the answer to that question is yes, and all of the other terms are favorable, then it would be financially malfeasant of me not to accept that project. However, this means that all the other terms have got to be favorable as far as I'm concerned. And as you can guess from this conversation, one of the things that I'm going to look really, really hard at is what are the terms for electronic books? And if they tell me that X percentage is a deal breaker, then they just must not want to work with me. And that's fine, and I'll find there will be other people that will, or I will find other places to do stuff.
hmm Have you considered, and this is a bit of a fishing question maybe, but I'll ask it anyway. Have you considered retaining the complete electronic rights for one of your newer books, one of your more recent books, and only having some, say, mid-sized or even small press make the physical book, just so that you could be assured of getting the deal where you get to keep all electronic rights?
That certainly, I've certainly discussed that with some companies about whether or not they want to do a physical only copy of a particular title, and that's something that I'm pursuing. I did a digital original novel called "In Hero Years I'm Dead," and that I've discussed and tentatively have a deal with a game publisher to do a trade paperback edition of that particular book. Right now, the traditional publishers, the big publishers, have all gotten together and have drawn a line and said, we will not cut any deals that are paper book only. And I think it will be interesting to see how long their resolution there lasts. And in which case, if I have some digital originals and they decide that they want to go ahead and do physical editions of books, I would be more than happy to enter conversations with them.
If you're doing your book yourself, how do you arrange for getting a nice, respectable cover? Because many people they'll look at a book on Amazon and it's got a really crappy cover and they think, oh, it must be an awful book, or written by somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. Now you're a famous and established author, so you might get a little more leeway, but still you have to have a book that at least looks respectable, a cover. And how do you arrange that if you don't have an outside publishing house doing it?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that outside publishing houses very often have all of their cover work, all their designs done outside. They don't have artists. They don't have artists in house. Mm-hmm. Same with their editors. Their editors are, their copy editors and stuff like that are all freelancers. They're not in house. So basically, we can get the services of those individuals as well as anybody else. There are two key facts to remember about doing books for digital publications. One, you want to turn out a cover that looks good as a postage stamp, because that is how most people are going to see it. And so, you want bright colors. You want good primary colors that are going to show up. You want high contrast, so it'll show up in that black and white screen for the Kindle or for anything else. And you want it to be an iconic image as opposed to a representational image. Representational images are what we see on a lot of books, the wraparound covers, the vistas and everything like that, which look great when you're looking at a book cover. They're not so hot when you're looking on your screen for this is what I'm going to read today. So once you realize that, once you take the problem down to being it has to look good as a postage stamp, mm-hmm. And if you go out and you look at what everybody else is doing for covers out there and sort them into this looks good as a postage stamp, this looks like crap as a postage stamp, mm-hmm. Then you pretty much have plenty of examples to go ahead and work from, to say, oh, this must be how it's done. Mm-hmm. And that's what you do. And I'm lucky enough that I've got friends who are talented enough doing graphics to put these things together. But I know plenty of other authors who are doing it themselves. They go out on the internet. They find, and for science fiction, this is great because you can find tons of Hubble photographs and other photographs like that are in the public domain, since the United States government has already paid for those. Mm-hmm. And they use these beautiful nebula shots, as the background for their science fiction novel. Slap some lettering over the front of it, and bingo, you've got a beautiful, beautiful picture. And so that's what you do. On a couple of mine, I've had to put together the covers for a variety of reasons, and that's literally all I did was take some public domain artwork, put it up, did some cool stuff with topography, and bingo, you got a cover.
I want to ask you, does your agent get a cut if you put a book yourself up on Kindle and the agent didn't sell it? But I'm really asking for more of a generic answer. Is it typical that the agent gets a cut?
It depends. It depends upon the agent. My agent has not asked for a cut, has not addressed that issue with me, and in fact has sent other of his clients to me so I can help them get their stuff going digitally. So I guess he's not really concerned about that. And especially it's because we're doing a lot of backlist stuff, which is not going to sell anyway. You're not going to be able to get the big deals and those things. I do know of other agents who do in fact want a piece of the digital rights if their authors are selling it themselves. And I will not comment one way or the other, on whether or not I think that's a good idea. I will say this, that one of the issues that we are having to deal with is that there are a number of agents who are shifting their business model such that they are becoming publishers, that they are saying to their clients, you have a backlist, let me take your backlist, I will prep it, I will get an artist, I will get it up on the up for the Kindle, or I'll get it up for iBooks or for the Nook, and then we'll split the money 50-50. And other writers and I have categorically come out against that for two reasons. One, for the agents, it is a conflict of interest because a 50-50 deal is not the best deal that their clients can get. And so for them to be doing that, suddenly they've become a publisher, and they're the publisher representing the author to themselves, the publisher. That is de facto a conflict of interest. The second thing, and this is really important for anyone listening who wants to put their material out there, there are people who will offer you the service to prep your work and make it available for the Kindle, make it available to sell online, and they will do so for a percentage. Under no circumstances should you pay them a percentage. Paying them a percentage of your sales for doing what is basically day labor is makes as much sense as paying your gardener a percentage of what you sell your house for just because he's mowed the lawn. What he does is day labor. What you are selling is the product. So, and you can find people. I've heard prices quoted anywhere from $10 to $600 to prep a manuscript to go onto the Kindle and to be available for the Nook. I've heard prices anywhere between $25 and $150 for someone to do a cover. Shop around, find stuff, work with other. If you don't think that if you've got some graphic talent but you don't understand computers, I guarantee you there's another writer, within 50 feet of where you live that knows how to do computer stuff but can't do graphics. Authors should get together in little co-ops and help each other do this stuff.
Yeah, there's an outfit, and I can't remember their name right now, that I've dug up that does it for a flat fee. He does prepares it for both the Kindle and the Nook, and charges $150 for a book. And the reason I went with him is because I've tried formatting it myself, and the thing that I can't do, and amongst other things, is make the text very appropriate. But the main thing I want is the ability for the reader to click on chapter titles on the table of contents and go to that chapter, and other little technicalities that make it more convenient for the reader. And since he's of course done many of these, he's been doing them for years, actually, long before the demand grew so huge. I decided to go with him.
Are you on a Mac or are you on PC?
PC.
Okay. Because I use piece of software put out by Zapptek, and for $50 they'll sell you a program, works on the Mac, that will do all of that for you for $50.
Have you actually used it? That it works?
Oh yes, I helped develop it. All of my stuff has been processed through it.
Oh, okay.
I don't get any money from it. Michael Zapp was the designer, and I knew him, and he and I got apps into the App Store. When the App Store opened, I was the first author to have apps available for the iPhone and iPod Touch.
Okay.
And that was because I worked with him, and then he went on to do Legend Maker, which is his program that will do this stuff. And the one concern that I've got with the flat fee guys, and the one thing that I would want to look at is how many times will they redo your book without charging you? The one thing that I would want to see in a flat fee agreement is that they will do up to 4 iterations of the book for you. And the reasons for that are simply this. One, when I do the books myself, I do the EPUB version, and the hot links in the EPUB version go to places where you can buy the EPUB versions of my books. The hot links in the Kindle edition of my books go back to Amazon so that you can buy the Kindle edition. So that means the same manuscript has got two sets of links. So that's two separate products out of one manuscript with minor changes. You will always have typos. And, readers will get one of the books and they'll say, hey, I don't know if you know this, you've got this typo in here. I just did a new edition of In Hero Years because of it. Well, between 3 different letters, I had readers who had spotted 5 different typos, and none of them had the same list. They all had something different. So being able to clear up typos, if every 2 months you do a new edition clearing up typos, you wouldn't want to pay the $150 again for this guy to go through and clean up a typo on page 47.
Yeah.
So you would hope that part of that $150, once they'd done that prep, would include 2 or 3 redos to cover typos, to add links back in when you've got more books up. You want to update that link, the link farm at the front of the book. Hopefully they would allow you to do that. Otherwise, literally, if you're having to pay $150 per shot every time you want to increase your link farm up front to be able to sell more books, you're better to save that money, buy a refurbed Mac, spend $50 on Legend Maker, and do it yourself.
And if one of the listeners wanted to find out more about this Legend Maker thing, the software you're talking about, is there a website, or where would they go for that?
It's zapptek.com.
All one word, Zapptek.
Zapptek, yep.
Okay.
And it's called Legend Maker, and it is great.
Okay. That was Michael A. Stackpole. You can learn more about him at his website, michaelastackpole.com. That's spelled michaelastackpole.com. If you enjoyed this show, please share it with all of your friends. Thank you. That's it for this episode of The Future and You. This program is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivative Works 2.5 license. A copy of this license may be viewed at creativecommons.org. Briefly, this means you may, indeed you are encouraged to, copy this entire program as many times as you wish and give it away to as many people as you wish. But you may not copy only a portion of this program, you may not charge anyone any amount of money for it, and you may not use any portion of it to make something new. On the other hand, anyone whose obvious goal is to recommend the show to others automatically gets special dispensation. Offline reviews, which include the show's website, may include brief quotes. And online reviews, such as for a blog or community group or web page, which provide a conspicuous link to the show's website, may use as many quotes as they wish, up to and including a transcript of 1/2 of any interview. The show's theme music is a blues number called Some Sympathy by Chris Jurgensen, and is from his album Big Bad Sun, which is available at magnatune.com. Magnatune is an independent record label that sells its catalog of music through online downloads and print-on-demand CDs. The company allows artists to retain full rights to their music and splits equally with an artist all the revenue from the sale of their work. All the music at Magnatune may be previewed free of charge, and customers can even choose how much they want to pay for the music, with pricing ranging from $5 to $18 per album. You can learn more about them at magnatune.com. That's spelled magnatune.com. If you have a theory or opinion about what the future will contain, be it the near future or the far future, you may email it to me at thefutureandyou.com. That's me@thefutureandyou.com. You may also suggest topics that you would like to hear discussed, or send contact information for experts that you feel might provide valuable insights into the future. Mind you, an expert is not necessarily someone with an impressive degree. The best experts are the people who live or work or strive in the area under discussion. If the subject is science or medicine or academia, a degree is important. But if the discussion concerns trends in construction or firefighting or video gaming, a degree is pretty much meaningless. To get the inside dope, you've got to find the people who actually do this stuff every day. They are the first to see the trends because the trends have already begun changing their lives. As to the topics we will explore in the next episode of The Future and You, I can make no guarantees. Interviews are still being sought, recorded, and edited. All I can promise is that we will ruminate on the future. To learn more, check the show's website at thefutureandyou.com. If you enjoyed the program, please mention it to a friend, and be sure to join me again next time. Until then, I have been your host, Stephen Euin Cobb. On behalf of myself and all my guests, I thank you for listening.